The hotel ballroom was aglow with chandeliers and the murmur of happy guests. I sipped my champagne, watching Sarah glide across the room in her beautiful wedding gown. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. "You conniving witch! You ruined everything Dad worked for, and now you dare show your face here?" Sarah's voice cut through the air, sharp and unforgiving. Heads turned. There was a collective intake of breath. I froze, the glass slipping from my fingers and shattering on the floor. "Sarah, what are you talking about? This is your wedding day," I managed to say, struggling to keep my voice steady. She marched up to me, eyes blazing. "Don't play dumb, Paige. You manipulated the family finances to erase Dad's legacy. How could you do that to us?" I looked around at the staring guests, whispers spreading like wildfire. My heart pounded as I tried to think clearly. "I don't know what you've been told, but this isn't the time or place." "This is the perfect time and place," she snapped, her voice trembling with emotion. "My father deserves justice, and I won't let you get away with this." I started, but she cut me off. "Save it. Everyone should know the truth about you." Sarah's shouting had drawn a crowd, faces filled with a mix of curiosity and horror. James, my son, pushed through the throng, coming to stand beside me. "Sarah, this isn't the way to handle things. Let's talk about it privately." "Privately? No way. This is where everyone will hear it," Sarah retorted. "You always back her up, don't you, James?" "Because you're being unreasonable," James shot back, frustration etched in his features. I placed a calming hand on his arm. "James, it's okay. We'll figure this out," Sarah scoffed. "Typical. Always the peacekeeper." "Well, Mom, this time you can't sweep it under the rug." A murmur of agreement rippled through the guests. People were hanging on every word. I faced Sarah, feeling a mixture of sadness and resolve. "If there are issues to discuss, we will, but not here. You deserve your wedding day to be perfect, not marred by accusations." She snarled. "Perfect? This day is already ruined thanks to you. You took everything from us." Before I could respond, her new husband Tom swept in, trying to pull her away. "Sarah, let's go. This isn't the moment." She shook him off. "No, Tom. Everyone needs to know what she's done." Tom looked at me, then back at Sarah. "We can handle this later. Please, don't ruin our day." For a moment, Sarah softened, her grip on her anger loosening just enough to let Tom lead her away. The guests resumed their hushed conversations, casting furtive glances in my direction. James sighed deeply. "Mom, what's going on?" I shook my head, trying to process. "I don't know, James, but we'll get to the bottom of it." The sense of normalcy seemed fragile, like it could shatter at any moment. I knew this was far from over. As Sarah disappeared into the crowd with Tom, a storm of questions swirled in my mind. What had turned her against me so fiercely? What secrets lay buried beneath her accusations? I was determined to find out, and to clear my name. The peace and unity I had worked so hard to maintain in our blended family were unraveling, one thread at a time. The commotion of the wedding day still echoed in my mind as I sat on the porch, memories of the past flooding back. I closed my eyes and found myself back in the whirlwind days when Bruce and I first met. It was late fall, the leaves blanketing the streets with a golden glow. I had walked into the quaint coffee shop on Main Street, seeking warmth from the crisp, biting air. That's where I first saw him. Bruce Miller, the charismatic entrepreneur who seemed to light up the room just by being in it. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" he had asked, flashing a grin that melted away any reservations I had. "No, please, go ahead," I replied, my heart fluttering in my chest. Our conversation that day flowed effortlessly, as though we had known each other forever. By the time our coffee cups were empty, I knew Bruce was special. Our dates were a whirlwind of dinners, spontaneous road trips, and long, heartfelt conversations about life, dreams, and family. One evening, a few months after we started dating, Bruce took my hand as we walked along the riverbank. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. "Paige," Bruce said, turning to face me, his eyes serious but full of warmth, "I know it's complicated, but I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" My breath caught. "Yes, Bruce, I'll marry you," I whispered, barely able to contain my joy. From that moment on, life seemed almost magical. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair. Bruce's daughter Sarah was there, a distant but polite teenager, trying her best to accept the new addition to her life. Blending our families was no easy feat. Sarah was reserved, often retreating to her room rather than joining us for family dinners. Bruce would try to bridge the gap, often sharing stories to make us laugh. "Give her time, Paige," Bruce would say gently. "She'll come around." I nodded, hopeful. But every so often I'd catch Sarah's stare, a cold glimmer of resentment that she masked well around Bruce. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Bruce looked at me, his expression thoughtful. "You've been amazing, trying to bring the family together." "I just want us to be a family, Bruce," I replied, squeezing his hand. Sarah's subtle hostility was something Bruce didn't see, perhaps because he didn't want to. He was Daddy's little girl, even if she was growing up, and he wanted so badly for us all to be happy. In the months following our marriage, Bruce's business began to thrive. The long hours and dedication he put into his company paid off, but it also meant he was away more. I did my best to hold the family together, supporting Sarah's school events and cheering James on at his soccer games. But every step closer I tried to get with Sarah seemed to push her further away. Our interactions were often laced with unspoken tension. Whenever I made efforts to bond, she would nod curtly and disappear into her room. "Mom, why doesn't Sarah like you?" James asked one evening, after a particularly cold one-word response from Sarah. "She's adjusting, honey," I said, hoping my words would become the truth. I stood by the window, gazing out at the twilight sky. The family I had dreamt of was filled with cracks beneath the surface. I didn't see the storm brewing underneath Sarah's calm facade, nor the lengths she would be willing to go to vent her silent anger. How blind love and determination had made me. Dinner time had become a tense affair in our household. Bruce had always insisted on family dinners, sitting us down together every evening. It was meant to be a time to connect, but more often than not, it felt like navigating a minefield. "Sarah, how was your day?" Bruce asked one evening, his voice filled with genuine interest and warmth. "Fine," she replied curtly, pushing her food around on her plate. She barely looked up, her face a mask of indifference. James tried to break the silence. "We're working on a cool project in science class. We're building a rocket model." "That sounds exciting, James," Bruce said with a smile. "Right, Sarah? You think so too?" Sarah muttered, disinterested. Bruce gave me a worried glance. I responded with a small, encouraging smile, though inwardly I was exhausted by the constant effort to maintain peace. Later that night, I found Sarah in the kitchen, rummaging through the fridge. "Let's talk." "Sarah," I said, trying to sound calm and inviting. She sighed, shutting the fridge door with more force than necessary. "What is it, Paige?" "I know things have been rough between us, but I'd like us to find a way to get along. For Bruce's sake, if nothing else." She crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. "For Bruce's sake? How noble of you." "Sarah, please. This hostility isn't helping anyone. Can we try?" "You don't get it, do you?" she snapped, her voice rising. "You're so focused on playing the perfect wife and mother, but you're not my mom. You never will be." "I'm not trying to replace your mom," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I just want us to be a family." She scoffed, turning away. "Family? This isn't a family. It's your fairy tale. And I'm just a prop in it." "Sarah?" "Save it, Paige. I don't need your fake concern. Just stay out of my life," she said, storming out of the kitchen and leaving me standing there, feeling more divided than ever. The days turned into weeks, and if anything, Sarah grew colder. Any attempt to reach out was met with disdain or outright hostility. Bruce, caught up in expanding his business, noticed, but attributed it to typical teenage angst. Only James seemed to sense the depth of Sarah's resentment. At a family game night, James tried to lighten the mood. "How about Monopoly? We haven't played that in a while." Bruce agreed eagerly. "Great idea, James. Sarah, care to join us?" Sarah shot me a glare before plastering on a fake smile. "Sure, why not?" As we played, the tension was palpable. Every move seemed to irritate Sarah more, until finally she exploded over a petty loss. "This is so dumb," she yelled, shoving the game pieces aside. "Why do we even bother?" "Sarah, calm down," Bruce said, surprised by her outburst. "No, I'm done pretending," she snapped, turning on her heel and leaving the room. Bruce sighed heavily. "What am I missing, Paige?" "All we can do is keep trying," I said, though the words felt hollow even to me. Quiet moments alone with Bruce were rare, but cherished. One night, we sat on the porch, the cool night air offering a brief respite from the day's troubles. "It'll get better," Bruce said, more to himself than to me. "Sarah just needs time." "I really hope so," I replied, leaning into him. But deep down, I sensed that something more sinister was brewing inside Sarah, something that time alone wouldn't heal. As I watched the stars flicker above, I hoped against hope that this storm would pass. But Sarah's brooding silence and cold stares told me otherwise. She was a ticking time bomb, and I feared the day she would explode. The phone call came late one evening. Bruce had been working long hours, often coming home exhausted. But that night, he hadn't come home at all. "Paige," the voice on the other end was solemn. "It's Bruce. He's had a stroke." Everything after that was a blur. The rush to the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the sympathetic looks from the doctors and nurses. Bruce didn't survive the night. At the funeral, Sarah stood apart from us, her face an unreadable mask. James leaned on me, his grief palpable. We gathered around Bruce's grave, tears spilling freely. The reality of his absence felt unbearable. During the service, Bruce's old business partners approached me, their faces grave. "We're so sorry for your loss, Paige. Bruce was a good man." I nodded through my tears. "He was." "We need to discuss some things about the company when you're ready," one of them added gently. "There are complications." "Of course," I managed to say, though I wasn't ready for anything but mourning. After the funeral, the house felt impossibly empty. Sarah was distant, her cold demeanor even more pronounced. She barely spoke during meals, her presence a stark reminder of the fractured family Bruce had left behind. One evening, as I was sitting in Bruce's office trying to make sense of the business documents, Sarah walked in. "Do you even care, Paige?" I looked up, startled. "Of course I care, Sarah. I loved your father deeply." "This isn't about Dad," she snapped. "It's about you taking over everything, his business, his legacy. You're just replacing him like it's nothing." "That's not true," I protested. "I'm trying to keep his work alive, for all of us." "For you," she charged. "This is all about you and your control." "Sarah, that's not fair," James said, stepping into the room. "Stay out of this, James," she retorted. "Stop it, please," as I said, holding back tears. "We need to stick together now more than ever." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Stick together? You mean fall in line under you, right?" "Sarah, why are you doing this?" James asked, his voice shaking. "Dad wouldn't want us to fight like this." "Dad isn't here to want anything," she said coldly, "and neither of you understand what's at stake." She stormed out, leaving a silence heavy with unresolved anger. Days turned into weeks, and I met with Bruce's business partners, trying to understand the complexities of his company. One day, one of the partners, Mr. Riley, pulled me aside. "Paige, there's something you need to know," he said, his voice low. "We've found discrepancies, large sums of money unaccounted for. It looks like someone's been embezzling." My heart sank. "Who?" "That's the thing," he said, looking grim. "It appears to be someone close. We need to investigate further, but brace yourself. It might be someone you wouldn't expect." A shadow of doubt crossed my mind. "You mean Sarah?" He hesitated. "It's too early to say, but we need to be thorough." As I absorbed the news, I felt a new resolve. I had to protect Bruce's legacy, our family, from falling apart. But the thought that Sarah, even indirectly, could be involved was like a knife to the heart. The undercurrent of betrayal and suspicion grew stronger, and I knew confronting this would be the toughest battle yet. The storm Sarah stirred had only begun, and as the truth loomed closer, I feared what it might reveal. "Mom," James said, sensing my unease, "we'll get through this. Together." I nodded, drawing strength from his words. "Yes, we will. We owe it to Bruce and to us." I sat in Bruce's old office, surrounded by stacks of papers and unopened letters, feeling overwhelmed. The discrepancies Mr. Riley mentioned weighed heavily on my mind. Something was terribly wrong, and I needed answers. The door creaked open, and Sarah walked in with a defiant glare. "Still playing the grieving widow, I see," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my composure. "There are financial issues with the company. Serious ones." Her eyes narrowed. "And you're blaming me, of course. How convenient." "I'm not blaming anyone yet," I replied. "But your father's legacy is at stake. We need to work together." "Work together? That's rich," she scoffed. "You just want control." I held up a document. "This isn't about control. Large sums are missing. Do you know anything about this?" She crossed her arms. "Why would I know anything? I have my own life, Paige. Unlike you, I'm not obsessed with running everything." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I'm trying to protect what Bruce built, and I need to understand what's happened." "Maybe you should look in the mirror," she fired back. "For all I know, you're the one who messed things up." James entered the room then, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" "Your mother is accusing me of stealing," Sarah snapped. "I'm not accusing you," I said, exasperated. "I'm asking if you know anything." "Cool it, Sarah," James said, stepping between us. "Let's just calm down and figure this out." Sarah threw up her hands. "Why are you always on her side, James? Wake up. She's twisting everything." "Sarah, that's enough," James said firmly. "Dad's gone, and we need to stick together to get through this." There was a long, heavy silence before Sarah turned and stormed out. James turned to me, his face etched with worry. "Mom, what's really going on?" I handed him the documents. "Money is missing from the company. A lot of it. We need to find out who's responsible." James frowned as he scanned the papers. "Do you think it's Sarah?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but we need to figure this out before things get worse." Days turned into sleepless nights as I pored over financial records, trying to make sense of the chaos. The more I looked, the more suspicious gaps I found. One name popped up repeatedly: Tom, Sarah's fiancé. The transactions tied back to him were too frequent and too large to be coincidences. One evening I decided to confront Tom directly. I invited him over, making sure James was there for support. When Tom arrived, he had an air of confidence that soon wavered under scrutiny. "Tom, we need to talk," I said, ushering him into the living room. His eyes darted nervously. "What's this about, Paige?" he asked, trying to appear casual. "It's about the company's finances," I said plainly. "Your name appears in some questionable transactions." Tom's face hardened. "You're accusing me?" "I'm asking for an explanation," I countered. His eyes flickered to James, seeking an ally. "James, you know I wouldn't do anything to harm the family." "Just answer the question, Tom," James said, his voice cold. Tom's composure cracked. "Fine. Yes, I moved some money around, but it's not what you think. I was trying to help." "Help," I echoed in disbelief. "By draining the company?" "Paige, you don't understand. Bruce was under a lot of pressure. He knew business needed an infusion, and I was handling it," Tom explained, but his words rang hollow. "The police will need to hear your side too," I said, my voice steady. Tom's face turned pale. "You're turning me in?" "I have to protect our family and Bruce's legacy," I said. Tom looked at James, desperation in his eyes. "James, you have to believe me. I was set up. This isn't what it looks like." But James stepped away, disappointment clear in his expression. "You broke our trust, Tom. There's no coming back from that." As Tom was led out, I felt an odd solace. The truth was starting to come to light, but there was still a long road ahead. Sarah's part in all this remained a painful mystery, one I had to unravel for the sake of everything Bruce and I had built together. After Tom's arrest, the atmosphere in our home was tense, every interaction fraught with unspoken accusations and raw emotions. I hired a private investigator to dig deeper into Tom's actions and uncover the full extent of his betrayal. The investigator, a sharp-eyed man named Mark, was thorough and relentless. One evening, Mark arrived with a stack of files, his face grave. "Paige, you might want to sit down for this." I motioned for him to continue, fear and anticipation gnawing at me. "We've discovered that Tom was siphoning funds directly from the company accounts for the past 2 years," Mark began. "It wasn't just embezzlement. He was involved in fraudulent deals that put significant financial strain on Bruce." James, who had been listening quietly, interjected, "So Tom is the reason Dad was so stressed out?" Mark nodded. "Yes, those financial irregularities likely contributed to Bruce's deteriorating health." A wave of grief and anger crashed over me. "And Sarah? Was she involved?" Mark hesitated. "We haven't found direct evidence implicating Sarah yet, but her proximity to Tom raises suspicions. We need to be careful." Suddenly the front door burst open, and Sarah stormed in, face flushed with anger. "What's he doing here?" she demanded, glaring at Mark. "We're discussing the investigation," I said firmly. Sarah's eyes blazed. "So, you mean your witch hunt against Tom? He's innocent, and you're ruining his life." "Sarah, we have evidence," James started, but she cut him off. "Evidence," she spat. "This is all a setup. Paige is framing Tom to get rid of him." I stood up, feeling a surge of frustration. "Sarah, why would I do that? Bruce's company is collapsing because of Tom. He betrayed us all." Her face twisted with rage. "Of course you'd say that. You've controlled everything from the start. You couldn't stand seeing us happy." "Happy?" James echoed, incredulous. "Sarah, Tom was stealing from us and driving our father to his grave. How is that happiness?" Sarah turned to me, tears in her eyes. "You never wanted us to be a family. You only cared about your perfect image. Well, now everyone sees the truth about you." At that moment, Mark cleared his throat, breaking the tense silence. "I think it's best if I go now. We've got a lot more work to do." As Mark left, Sarah's shoulders slumped, and she looked more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "He's all I have left," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I reached out to her, but she flinched. "Sarah, you have us. We can get through this, but we need to face the reality." She backed away, shaking her head. "I can't. You've destroyed everything." With that, she fled upstairs, leaving her words hanging in the air. James and I exchanged a sorrowful look. The storm wasn't over, it was only just beginning. In the following days, Mark's investigation unearthed more damning details. Tom had not only drained the company's resources, but also used the money to fund a lavish lifestyle and risky ventures. His actions had placed the entire business on the brink of collapse. One evening, as I was reviewing the latest findings, James sat beside me. "Mom, we need to talk to Sarah. She's spiraling." "I know," I said, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "But how do we get through to her?" "We'll find a way," he said, determination in his eyes. "We're not giving up on her." The next morning, I went to Sarah's room, knocking softly. "Sarah, can we talk?" "Go away," she mumbled from inside. "Please, Sarah, it's important," I persisted. After a long pause, she opened the door, her eyes red from crying. "What do you want?" "I want us to move forward," I said gently. "We've all made mistakes, but we need each other now." She looked at me, a flicker of hope mingling with her anger and sorrow. "How?" "By understanding the truth," I said, stepping inside, "and by forgiving each other." For the first time, Sarah didn't pull away. She sat down, and we began to talk. It was the start of a long journey toward healing, but at least it was a beginning. Together, we would confront the past and find a way to rebuild our shattered family. Tom's arrest sent ripples through our community, and I half expected Sarah to come to her senses. But instead, her fury intensified, and she became more withdrawn. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen, eyes blazing with desperation and anger. "You did this! You've always been out to get Tom," she yelled, fists clenched at her sides. "Sarah, Tom is a thief. He betrayed our family. Why can't you see that?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're lying," she screamed. "This is all your fault. You wanted to destroy us from the start." I stepped forward, trying to reach her. "Sarah, listen to yourself. The evidence is clear. Why are you defending him?" "Because I love him." She burst into tears, collapsing onto a chair. "I love him, and you've taken him away from me." James walked in, eyes wide with concern. "Sarah, you need to understand, Tom did this to himself. He's hurt all of us." She looked up, her eyes red and puffy. "You're no better, James. Always siding with her, both of you against me." "That's not true, Sarah," James said softly. "We're trying to protect this family. We're trying to protect you." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. It was heartbreaking to see her so broken, so completely consumed by her emotions. I didn't know how to reach her, how to make her understand that we were in this together. Over the next few days, Sarah's behavior became more erratic. She would leave the house for hours, returning late at night, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. One evening she confronted me again, this time with an even more determined look. "I spoke to Tom," she said, her voice trembling. "He says he's innocent, that you set him up." My heart sank. "Sarah, you can't be serious. Tom is lying to you." "No, you're lying," she shouted. "I'm going to fight for him. I'll prove he's innocent." "Sarah, please," I begged. "Don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to us." She turned on her heel, leaving me standing in the kitchen, a deep sense of dread settling in my stomach. A few days later, Sarah returned home with a lawyer demanding we drop the charges against Tom. The lawyer, Mr. Johnson, looked uncomfortable as he laid out their case. "Paige, Sarah believes Tom is innocent, and we're here to prove it," he said. I was stunned. "Prove it? How?" "She believes there is evidence that wasn't considered, that the investigation was biased," Mr. Johnson explained. "Biased?" James interjected. "Tom's guilt is clear, Mr. Johnson. He admitted to the crimes." "But under duress," Sarah insisted. "He was forced into a confession." "That's ridiculous," I said. "Tom had every opportunity to come clean. He chose to lie and steal." Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. "We'll be requesting a review of the case. Until then, I'd advise you to reconsider your stance." As they left, I felt the ground beneath me shift. Sarah was determined to fight for Tom, no matter the cost. Her refusal to see the truth was tearing us apart. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by the weight of it all. James sat beside me, his presence a calming balm. "We'll get through this, Mom," he said softly. "We have to." "I know," I whispered. "But I'm worried about Sarah. She's so lost." "We'll find a way to bring her back," James reassured me. "We just need to be patient." The days passed and the tension grew. Sarah's desperation drove her actions, pushing her further away from us. It was a painful reminder of how fragile our family had become. The truth was out there, but Sarah wasn't ready to accept it. As I stood at the window watching the sunset, I knew this battle was far from over. We had to hold on, to fight for the truth, no matter how hard it got. For Bruce, for our family, and for Sarah, We couldn't give up. The storm was still raging, but we had to weather it together. The courtroom was silent except for the murmur of hushed voices as the judge banged his gavel. Tom stood in the dock, his face a mix of defiance and desperation. Sarah sat behind him, her expression a blend of hope and fear. The prosecution had presented a solid case, and now it was the defense's turn. Mr. Johnson walked to the front looking determined. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Reed is innocent. He was manipulated into a confession. The true culprit is Paige Miller. Gasps echoed through the room. I tightened my grip on James's hand, feeling the eyes of the courtroom on me. Mr. Johnson laid out his argument, weaving a tale of deceit and manipulation that painted me as the villain. When it was finally my turn to testify, I stood up, my heart pounding. The prosecutor, Mr. Evans, guided me through the questions. Mrs. Miller, did you have any involvement in the embezzlement? He asked. No, I did not, I replied firmly. Explain how you discovered the financial discrepancies, he continued. I noticed irregularities in the accounts after Bruce's death. I hired a private investigator who uncovered Tom's involvement, I said, glancing at Sarah, who was glaring at me. Mr. Evans nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. No further questions. Mr. Johnson approached, a smirk on his face. Mrs. Miller, isn't it true that you wanted control of the company after Bruce's death? I wanted to protect his legacy, I replied. Or to control it, he pressed. Objection, Your Honor, Mr. Evans interjected, asked and answered. Continue, but tread carefully, Mr. Johnson, the judge said. Johnson nodded. You claim to protect Bruce's legacy, but isn't it true you made decisions that weakened the company's finances? I did no such thing, I said, trying to keep calm. But you had access to the accounts. Isn't it possible that you mismanaged funds to frame Tom? He pushed, trying to unsettle me. No, it's not, I said firmly. Tom's actions are his own. He chose to steal and betray us. Mr. Johnson sneered. Convenient for you to say. Objection, Mr. Evans said loudly, badgering the witness. Sustained, the judge said, and Mr. Johnson stepped back. When the final statements were made, the jury left to deliberate. Hours felt like days as we waited for their decision. Finally, they returned, and the foreman stood up. We, the jury, find the defendant, Tom Reed, guilty on all counts. The room erupted. Sarah screamed, No, this is a mistake. She rushed towards Tom as he was led away in handcuffs, her cries heart-wrenching. In the days that followed, Sarah's devastation was palpable. Tom had turned against her in a plea deal, revealing his true nature. She was alone, broken, and confused. I approached her one night as she sat on the porch staring into the distance. Sarah, I began softly. She didn't turn. What do you want? To help you, I said, sitting beside her. We're still a family. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Nothing's the same anymore. No, it's not, I agreed, but we can rebuild, together. She looked at me, her eyes filled with pain. How? One step at a time, I said gently. You're not alone, Sarah. You have us. She nodded slowly, the anger and resentment starting to thaw. It was a beginning, a fragile one, but a beginning nonetheless. In the weeks that followed, our focus shifted to rebuilding what Tom had tried to destroy. James worked tirelessly with me, restoring the company's stability. Sarah, though still struggling, began to find her footing, seeking solace in small acts of redemption. One evening, as we stood on the porch looking out at the sunset, James spoke. Mom, we will rebuild everything he tried to destroy. I smiled, a sense of peace filling me. Yes, we will. We watched as Sarah joined us, her presence a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Together, we would face whatever came next, the bonds of family strengthened by the trials we had endured. For Bruce, for us, and for the future, we would continue forward, hand in hand.